What if Melmetal was in Gen 1 Ubers? Now, the fact that this guy is in Let's Go is already pretty weird. But you know what? I think because of that, he's probably one of the Pokemon you probably think of if you ever think about importing something into Gen 1. Or maybe you're not because it's a pure Steel type. But with Gen 1 custom games, you can do it. And you know what? I'm not the smartest guy around, but a Steel type with insane HP and defense, I think it's pretty good. Pretty good in a generation where the three best attacking types are Normal, followed by Psychic, followed by Ice. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Such a big deal that normally for these videos, I always consider the signature move. We are not going to give it the Melmetal, because it already does not need it. Not only that, but this is a generation where paralysis is at its strongest. So, yeah, a move where, but it's like a 60% chance to flinch basically. Why would I ever consider that? Even worse when you consider the fact that 34 speed? That's faster than Snorlax? Faster than Slowbro? That's just disgusting. Or not so much for Slowbro because it's a physically defensive water type. But Snorlax? Did he get with Steel Stab but then it probably flinches? No, none of that. So instead, we're just gonna have to limit it with its amazing mixed attacking move pool. Because yeah, this thing just has all of the moves it could ever want. Earthquake is already good enough as a physical move, and you really don't need to bother with anything else. I'm gonna be real, I didn't bother checking to see if it had Body Slam, but why would I need to when it has Thunder Wave? You can just directly apply the paralysis. So that's already great. Now, it has Thunderbolt as well, and Bolt Beam is probably a real set you can consider. But Ice Beam is probably your better option. Not only does it give you coverage against Rhydon, but in general, it's just a pretty good move. And for some of the bulky things in the format, such as Snorlax and Chansey, you do extremely well at fish freezing them. Obviously, Chansey uses Ice Beam, and there are plenty of Snorlax sets that use it as well. So theoretically, they can try to spam freeze against you, too. But it's just nowhere near as good. And the reasoning for that is, well, it should be pretty clear. You're a Steel type that's resisting it. And while it's not like Ice Beam is doing a lot of the Chansey and Snorlax anyways, I think an important thing to consider is that use enough of them and you do force them to heal. If Snorlax doesn't have healing, then it has to go straight for self-destruct. Which, you know, probably you shouldn't bother doing against Melmetal. But for Chansey, if it's below half health, enough Ice Beams or even Seismic Tosses will do that. But if you're doing such pitiful damage, like as well as 7%, I don't know. I guess you could technically do it, but it just doesn't seem like a good idea. Seems like Melmetal can force you to go for rest or soft-boiled way quicker than you can force it to rest. And on top of everything else, let's talk about that, shall we? It has rest. 135 HP is already one of the highest in the game. In fact, I would not be surprised if it's straight up just the third highest behind Chansey and Snorlax, which you're not supposed to put on high stats like these. Its second lowest stat, 65, that is the exact same special defense or special as Snorlax. And Snorlax, in some ways, kind of doesn't have a defensive typing, which obviously kind of does for Gen 1, because normal and Body Slam paralysis immunity is essential. But Melmetal has real resistances that are good. It resists ice. That's good. It resists critical razor leaves. That's good. So, like, it has not a single bad stat on it. And like I said, 34, even its worst stat, has Melmetal outspeeding things without paralysis. The main set you see here is probably good enough. With Earthquake and Ice Beam, you are hitting, I think, everything except for Cloyster or other water ice types. But of course, Thunderbolt is perfectly valid. And you know what? This thing probably has things like Hyper Beam. You can use that and it will be pretty good. Great, actually. Actually, let's look at the rest of these moves, shall we? Now, most of these are going to be Gen 7 moves, so don't care too much about them. Yeah, you have Hyper Beam. And Self-Destruct. Wow, so on top of everything else, you can just have Snorlax's move as well. Also, yes, I know I'm looking like a fraud. Like, kinda only now looking at these moves. I'm going to be honest. I was just so convinced on how good this thing would be that I didn't really think about other options. But Self-Destruct, oh my gosh, that kind of changes things, doesn't it? Or actually, maybe it doesn't. Because I can't think of too many situations where you're kind of forced to go for the move. So actually, no, I'll change my mind. I am changing my mind right now. Because now that I think about it, what is forcing you to go for Self-Destruct when you already have Rest? Yeah, I can't think of anything. I think now it's just good to start going into the replays. But before I do, I want you to look at something. See this format right here? You see the Aerodactyl, Mega Aerodactyl, Mega Charizard, a Well-Induct Trio. See all of these guys? It's a pretty weird format. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, wouldn't you say? But be on the lookout because in my Discord server, I host tournaments and formats based off the what-if scenarios that I do. And in the future, like in the recent future, I will be having a format which is Gen 1 OU, but with all of the Megas and regional variants that you see here. And that also includes new Pokemon like Partner Pikachu, Eevee, and Melmetal. Granted, not everything is guaranteed to stay. Mew, for example, is automatically getting banned. Same for Mega Alakazam and Mega Slowbro. And Melmetal might end up getting banned, but we'll have to see. But please, join the Discord server if you'd be interested in like participating in that. We also have a National Dex format going on right now, if you'd like to play games for that as well. We would love to have you. But, you know, for now, I think let's go to the replays. Also, you should like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate it. Starting off with the boy himself, we have Tauros, and I'm already getting Ferrothorn replays, or replay flashbacks, which is not a good sign because Melmetal is supposed to be taking these super effectively. But look at that. Unless you get a crit, I really don't think you care. And even with a crit, you might be able to survive because of paralysis specifically. And you need, I think Tauros needs 2 crits in a row? Or would 2 crits in a row even be enough? I don't know. But what I do know is that even with Tauros' great crit rate, you're so bulky that with Thunder Wave, I think it is worth being greedy and just resting until you get an opening. Like right here, you're at half health. And you know what? What the heck is going to kill you at half health? That's how bulky you are. Like, spoiler alert, but Rhydon cannot 2-KO you. Also, fun fact, when making these replays, Rhydon got 3 crits in a row. So it got a crit, and Melmetal survived it, and then I just made a new replay. And in that one, Rhydon, once again, got a critical Earthquake. Melmetal survived it, but I just kept the replay going, and Rhydon got another crit. Does anyone know the math? What are the chances of Rhydon critting 3 times in a row in Gen 1 OU? I'd love to know that. But, let's keep moving. And this time we still have Tauros. But this time it's with the obvious question. What if you spec'd in the Fire Blast? And tackling your 65 special, it definitely makes things... like, do I say easier? I'm gonna say no. Because with Thunder Wave, it's not 50% chance to lose, because that's not how math works, but with the 50% chance to miss with Fire Blast, and then or sorry, 25%. Or actually, no, I think it is 15. Either way, like, it's just really not in your favor. Because Paralysis is already bad enough, but then you have Fire Blast just not being the most accurate thing in the world. And then you have Melmetal that can survive it. And only having 8 power points on Fire Blast, really not good. You have the chance to burn, but again, Melmetal is a mixed attacker, so it can still, like, threaten you. But for this replay you see here, it did manage to take the Melmetal out, but it's paralyzed at half health, and it literally had to use all 8 of its Fire Blast PP. And obviously, if you're using Fire Blast on Tauros, you're sacrificing the fact that Starmie and Chansey can just become invincible. Yeah, so... like, technically better, but is it really? And now we have Snorlax. This is my first time actually seeing the animation. That looks sick. Now, Snorlax here, I think, does a little better. But I think that's most because of just how the meta is currently developing with Snorlax. I'm pretty sure that Reflect is still pretty popular. Now, granted, for this set here, it's not a real one. It's Earthquake, Reflect, Rest, Ice Beam. You would never use Earthquake over Body Slam. So take this with a pinch of salt. There is a lot of sets where it's just all normal moves, or it's, let's say, like, Body Slam and Ice Beam. Those Melmetal kind of eats alive. Although, I will be honest, Reflect is annoying. But I don't think it's annoying to where you can get killed by it unless you get frozen. And like you saw there, that only did 7.4%. So really, I don't think Fish Freezing against Melmetal is worth it because it is forcing you to heal way more quickly, which I do think matters a lot. Now, let's keep going. And this time we have Chansey. And next to Tauros, it technically has the best shot out of the big 3. Although at this point, I'm not even sure we can even call it a big 3 anymore. Also, did I say it has the best shot? Yeah, that's only with Thunderbolt exactly. And even then, it's only doing 21. But I'd still say that's, like, about the same as Seismic Toss because it's not super likely, but you might crit with Thunderbolt. But the real thing why, as I would say, it theoretically has the better matchup is because of Thunder Wave. I think Thunder Wave could be annoying, although for the most part, Melmetal doesn't care about it. But just like with Snorlax, you're, for the most part, pretty free just to fish for freeze. Dude, let's actually just put this in Hyper Fast, because you don't have Substitute on this set, but Substitute is absolutely a valid option on a high HP Pokemon like Melmetal. But yeah, you're just not really killing it. You just eat it alive. Now, we're not doing Alakazam next. Next, we're doing Cloyster. And without Thunderbolt, it eats you alive. And with Thunderbolt, you're probably not going to get the speed to actually outspeed it. So I'm going to say this is a pretty bad, maybe even unwinnable match. But to be honest, that's kind of fine. Like, this thing is already dominating so many other Pokemon. I think it can handle having at least 1 or 2 bad matchups. Next up, we're going to do Exeggutor. And I'll be honest, this is a victim of 2 things. One is a moveset that doesn't really exist, and the other is the fact that these are 1v1 replays where you can't switch out. This Exeggutor is using Psychic, Mega Drain, Stun Spore, and Explosion. Obviously, under what world would you ever run Stun Spore over Sweet Powder? It doesn't make sense. But I still made a replay like this to show like kind of a best case scenario for Eggy. And I feel like this is actually the most interesting of all the replays. Because more and more, I'm seeing more people use Mega Drain on Exeggutor. To the point where I'm now just putting it in all the videos as the main moveset for Eggy. And with that, even with Ice Beam, this actually becomes a kinda winnable fight in the long run. Because inevitably, Exeggutor is going to get those special drops. With that, Psychic on its own is already pretty hard, while you resist Earthquake and Ice Beam does less and less. But with Mega Drain, you're now going to slowly gain back that HP. I find that fascinating. And for this replay, you won't see it like here, but if you're on my Twitter or see my community post, you will see that I managed to get the Melmetal to 218 HP exactly, which if you don't know what that means, because of a glitch in RBY, that means that it can't heal. So for this replay here, Exeggutor won, but where would you put this in general? Ice Beam is definitely going to be annoying, but if Exeggutor hasn't put something to sleep, obviously Sweet Powder is a big deal, but let's ignore that. And let's say it's, well, definitely against most sets, Melmetal just kind of eats it alive. If it's like, for example, dual status with Stun Spore, Melmetal just eats it alive. Though I guess with special drops, it might still lose, but you'd have to be exceptionally lucky if you're the Exeggutor player. If it's double-edged, then obviously you just lose so hard it's not even funny. But with Psychic and Mega Drain, I don't know, it might just be biased because of this replay, but I honestly feel like I can see scenarios where you're getting special drops and Mega Drain helps you win the War of Attrition, so you don't even have to go for Explosion. I really need you to let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is an interesting matchup, but it's going to be one that you're going to have to explain to me more how it would work, you know, in practice. Or actually, I'm taking everything I said back. I know that sounds weird, but I just realized right now, if it's a 6v6, you just switch Melmetal, but you get a special drop. Or let's be real, only after a second special drop, because that's probably only when you're actually getting threatened. Yeah, just dismiss this entire rant I just went on, because in practice, you're just switching. It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's like 8:03. I haven't gone to bed yet. You might be able to tell me what a brain dead right now. But hey, here's Jolteon. And Thunderbolt is definitely doing more than a double kick. Don't consider using double kick on Melmetal. It's just not going to go well for you. And in general, I don't even think it's worth risking a crit, because Earthquake really messes you up. Speaking of which, yeah, Earthquake's only a 3-hit KO. But unfortunately, so is Ice Beam. So, I really feel like Rhydon probably wins, but... Or actually, I guess Rhydon even has a better crit rate, funny enough. But Melmetal does have the chance to freeze. Also, I don't even feel bad for that crit, because like I said before this, Rhydon already got 3 crits on Melmetal. So it's honestly kind of deserved. Now, Slowbro. I could have added Thunderbolt here, but I really don't think it matters. Because if you have Thunderbolt, then what? You don't have a good crit rate. So Slowbro can go for those amnesias, and it will just not care about your super effective coverage. So I think this is pretty much just unwinnable. Your only shot is paralysis, but since Slowbro is going to be sleeping most of the time, the only person really in danger of not moving from paralysis is you. Slowbro is comfortable to sleep, go for amnesias, and Spoilro, where just this one right here is enough to 2 KO. So honestly, you probably should just go for that. Go straight for that, and then Melmetal is just kind of cooked. Not much you can do there. Let's move on. Now for Starmie here, a lot of it really depends on the moveset. But nowadays, I just try to be fair and go specifically just for Blizzbolt. Because I feel like Blizzbolt is going to be the one you're going to see the vast majority of the time. And yeah, Thunderbolt isn't really doing that much. But the big game changer here is Recover. That could definitely help you win a War of Attrition. And the other thing is the crit rate. With Starmie's crit rate, a critical Thunderbolt will in fact do some pretty decent damage. And yes, Earthquake does a 3-hit KO. You're in danger. But Melmetal is just as annoyed with paralysis as you are. And when Melmetal is inevitably forced to go for rest, you are free to go for Recover or fish for crits. Or you can just get it right there. And yeah, getting a 40% with a crit is actually insane, considering beforehand it's only not even doing 20. Or I guess 19.5 is almost 20%, so I shouldn't be too surprised. And now we got Zapdos. This is, weirdly enough, kind of the opposite of Jolteon. where you could definitely stay in, try to go for a fight. And the big difference here is that you're immune to Earthquake. And while Ice Beam is super effective, you have high special. So this is actually kind of winnable. Now, Thunderbolt, that's some pretty good damage, but yeah, with a crit, that's like one of the few things that can just, out of nowhere, just delete Melmetal from existence. In fact, when making this replay, I was convinced I was going to have to make a new one because Zapdos got unlucky, but I think this is a perfect example on how Gen 1 RNG is a very wacky thing. Now, I don't have a replay for the mirror match this time, because I feel like the mirror match between Melmetal and Melmetal isn't very interesting. The only difference could maybe be like Thunderbolt tech, but that's whatever. Also, speaking of which, I didn't mention it, but Thunderbolt against Starmie, that could potentially be a game changer. But here we have the other 4 unwinnable Pokemon. Considering how bulky Melmetal is, I was curious to see if it can actually beat all 4 of them in a 1v1 when they don't have sleep on them. Now, this is probably not a fair thing to do, because, like, obviously expecting Melmetal to solo 4 Pokemon, probably not going to happen. But you know what? I think it's doing alright. And maybe that's because the Victory Bell didn't move whatsoever. But yeah, that's honestly, it says more about Victory Bell than anything else, let's be honest. But yeah, unfortunately, once you get the Jinx now, Kazam, while Melmetal can... I said that wrong, but... While Melmetal can very easily beat both of them 1v1, having to do with both of them working together, along with Victory Bell paralyzing and Gengar getting chip damage in, it just makes the special drops just... It's just way too much to handle. So that's unfortunate, but also I feel like this is way more entertaining if I just either didn't include the Pokemon at all, or if I just, you know, had a replay of Melmetal just dominating them in a 1v1. This was more fun. And you know what? The Melmetal still took out 2 Pokemon, so it still was a pretty good contribution. Now, since this is Ubers, we've now seen how good Melmetal is, so we're not even going to question if it will be an OE or not. It's simply too busted. So for now, let's see how it does against Mew. And Thunder Wave is very annoying. Mew hates getting paralyzed. At the same time, it got Sword Stance up. Earthquake is going to hit pretty strong. And most importantly, you have Soft Boiled. So the only real thing you're in danger of losing to is Paralysis, which I think is very manageable. And also just the fact that with Sword Stance, Earthquake, and 2 KO, that's kind of crazy. Now please forgive me for this replay you're going to see with the king himself, Mewtwo. This is a replay where Mewtwo has the optimal moveset for Melmetal, Psychic, and Ice Beam. And with that, I kind of intentionally threw. But in my defense, in this replay here, Mewtwo gets seriously kind of boned by Paralysis. So I could have ended it there. I could have went for Earthquake. But I really felt like that probably isn't an accurate representation. I feel like even if Mewtwo only has resistant moves, because of how inherently busted Amnesia is, I think it probably is still winning a 1v1. Funny enough though, for that replay there, the critical hit actually saved Melmetal. It would have definitely died if it weren't for that. Not that it mattered too much. The Mewtwo got killed with barely any chip damage. But if I wanted to, I could have just KO'd it entirely. So that's Melmetal, and here's the tier list. I think I'm keeping this in could go either way, but Exeggutor definitely needs to be moved to great matchups. I had a weird replay where Mega Drain somehow managed to make it win, but in practice, that is not going to be the case. No siree. In fact, Starmie might have to be moved to good, because the more that I do these, and the more that I looked at these replays, the more I'm starting to feel like, okay, yeah, maybe Thunderbolt or Hyper Beam is probably better than Thunder Wave. But not Self-Destruct. Despite being a powerful move, I'm going to assume you probably don't need to use it. Although, looking at the moveset again, with Self-Destruct, honestly, once we have the Let's Go Jumble, I think Melmetal's probably getting banned from the format before we start a tournament. But you can help with that. Because whenever we start one of these formats in seasons or whatever you like to call them, we play a few games first and we decide what works and what needs to get banned and go beforehand. So yeah, feel free to participate in that if you like. And we're also going to have a Pokemon Infinite Fusion tournament, which is really easy to actually join and stuff. If you want to know any of that, please join the Discord in the description below. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.